Hey there, everybody. This is the lecture video for Module 1. This is the Introduction to Critical Analysis. We're going to be kind of talking about how we will be breaking down cinema, all right? So our lesson objectives here: define cinematic critical analysis. So what are we talking about when we say that? Gaining an understanding of how we will analyze cinema in this particular class. And then learn about our film for Module 1, which is a short film called The Neighbor's Window. We'll be talking a little bit more about that along the way. This particular lecture will be a little bit longer because there's just a lot of information to get through. I usually chop them up into 10 to 15 minute bite-sized kind of pieces. So you might see that there's 2 or 3 lecture videos depending on how long these run. And that's just a way for you to go back and, like, if you need to go find a small piece of information, you don't have to go through like a 25-minute long lecture video. You have them in chunks, okay? So that's just something to kind of know as we move along here. So critical analysis define. Okay, it's the close examination of how a film's story, visuals, sound, and structure work together to communicate a meaning and a theme. So that's the definition of kind of critical analysis. And in a nutshell, it's breaking a film apart to understand why it works or why it doesn't, all right? So some films, most of the films we're talking about, if not all the films we're talking about, they all work on multiple levels. They're all different types of films, and some people will like some of them and some people will like other ones, kind of back and forth kind of thing. But they all have merit when it comes to their historical significance about how they were made. But some people might not like them, or there might be pieces of them that don't necessarily work very well because of one thing or another. And we'll be talking about that. So our lens of analysis, you've talked about this a few times. I've hit it in some of the videos leading up to this. But our lens of analysis is going to be through production, okay? And we're going to be talking about the narrative, which is the writing and directing, the cinematography, the acting performance, editing, and then sound design. So those are the 5 that we're going to be kind of monitoring. And every film, we might pick 1 or 2 to highlight on. In fact, in this one, I'm going to kind of pinpoint a couple things I want you to look at specifically as we make our way through. When we're talking about narrative, we're going to talk about narrative first. And the first thing I want to talk about is, why can't we separate writing from directing? Why do we have to kind of clump that all together? And the reason why is because we aren't reading the script. So we can't see what was written versus what made it to the screen. When you can do that, when you can look at both the script and the final film, you can see what choices the director made versus what choices the writer made when they wrote the script. But here we're not doing that. We are just looking at the film. So we kind of put all that together, okay? And the next thing I want to talk about when it comes to narrative is kind of the story versus the plot, all right? So the story is the whole event, okay? Everything that's happening from when the movie starts to when the movie ends. And the plot is the selection of what the filmmaker shows us. So you might be wondering, okay, how does that even make sense, right? We don't actually see everything that's going on in most of the movies that we watch, right? We just see glimpses and pieces of it. And then sometimes maybe later on, they reveal something that kind of gives us some new information about something we thought we knew, but we never actually saw what actually happened, and then they give us that information. So real quick, I'm going to show you a scene from a short film called The Angel. We're going to jump into the scene right in the middle of an argument between a father and a daughter driving in a car, and then we are going to lead into another scene, and then when we come back, I'll talk about kind of how we separate the story from the plot through that scene, all right? So let's take a look.
Everything I do has been for you.
Oh, really? Since when?
Well, blaming me for everything isn't gonna help. What was that?
You know what this town is famous for, Dad?
No, Ava, I don't. What's it famous for?
Suicides. People come here to kill themselves.
I didn't know that.
Shocker.
So, what, you wanna move somewhere else?
You don't get it. Going somewhere else won't help. I don't want to be anywhere.
I do get it. It sucks to be you right now, but I can't fix it if you don't tell me what's wrong.
Nothing. I don't want to talk to you. I just... Stop the car.
I'm not the bad guy,
Stop the car
sweetheart.
and let me out.
I'm not gonna stop the car in the middle of the...
Stop the car!
Fine. You wanna stop the car? There.
I hate you.
Dr. Kendrick, whatever you're doing isn't working because she's getting worse. And you're supposed to be helping her, and you're not.
All right, so we just saw that scene. We saw the father and the daughter kind of arguing in the car, and then the daughter, once out of the car, and the dad stops the car, and she gets out and slams the door and walks off. And then the next thing you see, we're inside the house. The father looks like he just got home. He puts the jacket down, and he has a conversation with the doctor, and you can see that his daughter is like sitting in a hallway, kind of listening to the conversation. All right. So that is the plot of the story. That's what the filmmakers decided to show us. But we didn't see what happened after he drove off. Did he pick her back up and she made her way back into the house and they just kind of pouted there? They kind of stayed silent the rest of the way. Like, how did she get to the hallway so that she could be listening into the conversation? Right? Did he just drive off and drive home and she walked the rest of the way home? Did she get a ride some other way? How did she seem to beat him there? She seems to be sitting there. All that stuff the filmmaker didn't show us, but that's part of the story. It's just not a part of the story that the filmmaker thought we needed to know, that we could get it and understand what was going on without seeing that information. Okay. So hopefully that makes sense. And hopefully you kind of see that. And as you watch movies, you kind of can understand that, okay, there are things that just happened that we didn't see. But they're kind of hoping that we just kind of understand it. And maybe it's information that we don't necessarily need to know because it doesn't impact the plot of the main story. All right. So hopefully that makes sense. Next thing we're going to talk about is who is our hero. So our hero character is our protagonist, our central character. Who's the main character of the film? All right. So we have to determine that so that we can start to analyze what we're talking about when it comes to the story. We have to first know whose story are we being told. So these are some clues when it comes to how you determine who the star or the hero or the protagonist is in a particular film. So the first one there says the title of the movie, right? So here's a slide from a show called, or a film called Oppenheimer. Okay, so that film has the name Oppenheimer right in the title. So we're probably watching a film and our title role of Oppenheimer is probably our hero or our protagonist. Indiana Jones and the Last Temple of Doom. Okay, Indiana Jones is probably our main character, right? Sometimes the title will help you understand. There's an older film called The Black Swan. Okay, well, who's the Black Swan in the story? Probably the person we are watching their story. Okay. Breaking the fourth wall. So breaking the fourth wall is when when an actor looks right at the camera and speaks to it, gestures to it, acknowledges that there's an audience behind there, right? Deadpool, Ryan Reynolds' character in those films, this is Deadpool like acknowledging the camera. There are several times in his films where he actually talks right to the camera, and so we can understand that, or we can infer that Deadpool and Ryan Reynolds' character, I forget his character name, is our main character, our hero, our protagonist in the film. All right. So that's another way that you can identify who the main character is. Who makes the last choice? So in a film, oftentimes there's got to be somebody who makes kind of the final choice in the movie as to whether they're going to do this or do that, right? The clip that I threw up there, the little shot that I threw up there is from the film Up, and that's Carl, who's our main character in the film Up. In that movie, we get to the end of the movie, and he has to decide, am I going to save my house that I cherished with Ellie and get this house to Paradise Falls, or am I going to go back and save Kevin the bird and Doug the dog, and I'm forgetting the little kid's name right now. I forget his name. I apologize. Is he going to do that? Is he going to go save his friends, or is he going to continue on with his journey? And he ultimately decides that he's going to go back and he's got to save his friends. He's got to take care of them because it's wrong if I don't, right? So that's the last choice in the movie, and that kind of determines how the movie's going to end right there when he makes that choice. So that's the last choice. The theme is another way that we can kind of figure out who our main character is, and we're going to talk about theme in a few minutes, and we'll also be talking about Up when we talk about theme. And then POV. If you can determine whose point of view we are kind of watching this film through, that gives you an idea about who our hero is, who our protagonist is. All right. So one of the things I want you to do in this particular film, The Neighbor's Window, is kind of try to figure out who the main character, who our hero is, who our protagonist is in the movie. So talking about two things here, genre and theme. So one of the things that you want to kind of analyze or be able to kind of decipher pretty early on is the genre of the film. What are we watching? Are we watching a rom-com? Are we watching a drama? Are we watching a horror film? What is it? And how did I determine that, right? Like, what are the clues that it gave me that helped me understand that this is the type of film that I'm watching? And nowadays, we actually have all this kind of mixed genre kind of stuff, right? We have dramedies now, right? So there's not just rom-coms, romantic comedies. There's dramatic comedies. There are psychological thriller horror films. There's all kinds of different kind of mix and match genres. So trying to determine what kind of film you're watching will help you kind of understand what it is you're going to see, right? So like in every rom-com, there is some kind of montage sequence where the couple falls in love, okay? It's like almost inevitable that in every single one, you're going to see that. So in rom-coms, we know that we see that and we're expecting that as we take on this film. And if we don't see it, we make a determination whether we liked it about the film or we didn't like it. We were missing that from this rom-com experience. That's part of what you do as you analyze film, right? So trying to figure out what genre we're watching is important. So see if you can figure that out in our film. The theme is the message of the film, all right? So what is this film about? What lesson is this film trying to teach us? Most films have some kind of underlying message. What is it that they want us to know, right? So we're going to talk about Up again because it's a film I'm hoping most of you have seen as you were growing up. The theme of the film Up is true adventure is found in forming new relationships, embracing the present, and letting go of the past. Okay, that is a statement. That is something that you can argue about, right? Like you can debate whether or not you think that's an actual true statement or not. And that's what a theme should be. It shouldn't just be like this film, the theme is love or brotherhood. It should be this definable, arguable, kind of debatable phrase that you come up with, right? And if you watch Up, that is what Carl ends up realizing at the end of the movie, that true adventure is found in forming new relationships, embracing the present, and letting go of the past. That is the theme of the film. So how do we get there with our characters? Usually our characters start a film in what we call the anti-theme. They are not embracing that kind of theme of the movie. And then the goal of the film is to get our main character to embrace what the theme of the movie is, right? So the anti-theme of Up is clinging to the past is the only way to honor lost loved ones and preserve meaning in life. So if you watch Up, he actually starts living this very isolated, insulated life. He takes care of this house like it's a shrine to his wife. He doesn't venture out into the world much, and he just wants to protect his home. And that's what he does, right? And that's what he thinks is the meaning of life and what he needs to do to have a good life, right? And then ultimately you find out through the end of the movie that no, his wife Ellie actually wanted him to go live new adventures and make new friends and have new connections. And so that is our theme of the movie. So as you are watching this film, I want you to pay attention to what you think the theme is. I'm not just giving away information. We're going to talk about this later in a recap, but I definitely want you to think about what the theme of this movie is when you watch it. It's a 20 minutes long, so hopefully you can kind of decipher that. Okay? Story structure. So when we're talking about film and narrative, how does the story structure, how it's done, impact your viewing experience, right? So this is what we're talking about. Structure, we're not going to get too deep in it, right? A traditional linear story. So it starts at a certain time, and we just see a linear, normal progression of time from one thing to the next, to the next, to the next, from one end to the other. In this particular movie, it's very linear. It's a traditional structure in the film. We don't kind of move around in time or switch from place to place time-wise or anything like that. It's told very straightforward, okay? There are jumps in time. We do see like the season change and things like that, which kind of let us know that this film is taking place over a couple different seasons at least. Excuse me. So another type of story structure would be traditional with a flashback or a dream sequence, something like that. So it's still pretty traditional, but somewhere along the line, we like flashback and see something that happened in the childhood, or we have some kind of dream sequence or something. And that's still pretty traditional if we just kick in one flashback or something like that. An untraditional or experimental way about telling a film would be to do something where the film bounces around in time and place and things like that. Oppenheimer is a 2023 Academy Award winning film that did just that. Like, we see his story told through different times and place. Like, we go back to when he was young, and then we skip and jump ahead to when he's older, and then we jump to the time where he's creating the bomb, and then we just move around in time. It is not told linearly from 1938 to 1945 and just told linearly. We jump from 1932 to 1940 whatever to 1920 whatever, it bounces around. Okay, everything everywhere all at once. We bounce from different times and different places to different dimensions. It's a very kind of interesting, well thought out film. But that's another film that's untraditional in its storytelling. Pulp Fiction was told non-linear. It's got a very we tell little sequences of the movie, and at the end it all kind of makes sense. And then Citizen Kane in 1941, that was a film that had a very untraditional, experimental, like, storytelling technique. All right.